I would like to call the special meeting of the Brooklyn City Council to order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Andy Selhertz.
Here.
Kathy Pucci.
Here.
Aaron Borowski.
Here.
Kevin Tansky.
Absent excused.
Sue Grodick.
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Here.
Stephen Coyle.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a couple of announcements before we get started. On Monday, January 1st at 1 p.m., there will be a swearing-in ceremony of City Council and the Mayor here in the council chambers. And then on Tuesday, January 2nd at 6:30 p.m., there will be the organizational meeting of City Council. Before we get started with public session, I'd like to invite two of our speakers today, Angelina and Laura from Lakewood. They are talking about Ordinance 2023-40, which is the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Commission. If you ladies would come up to the podium and
Your last names. Where you're from.
last name, sorry.
Oh, we can,
Yeah.
So
Name and
I'm,
city.
sure, I'm Laura Rodriguez Carbone. I'm chair of the Lakewood Anti-Racism Task Force.
Angelina Steiner, co-chair of the Anti-Racism Task Force for Lakewood.
And before council asks questions, will you guys just give a little bit of background on the Anti-Racism Task Force in Lakewood? And I know I had sent both of you the ordinance that we have in front of us here of similar work we're looking to do in Brooklyn. As residents who serve on the task force, a little bit about your experience and the feedback you've gotten from the community, and then we'll open up to council for questions.
Sure.
Thank you.
So we were incorporated via a council resolution in 2020, not long after the murder of George Floyd. We, as a body, we could make recommendations on any matter that is referred to us. As we have gotten more established, in the community, we have seen folks really support what we're doing, and we are tasked with making recommendations to make sure that anti-racism. So it's a little bit different from the resolution you have in front of you because we're mostly anti-racism focused, although DEIB is also included in that. We want to make sure that, diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging is, integral to everything that the city does, whether it's connecting with the community versus to internal policies. Do you want to add anything?
So, as Laura stated, we formed, shortly after the George Floyd murder in 2020. It was actually at the request of a resident that came up with the idea and approached the mayor. And so the mayor worked with council to put together this resolution. And we had our first meeting in December of that year. In our first year or so, maybe 2 years, was spent creating our bylaws for our group because we were tasked with sort of a broader, make recommendations and, work with council, work with the mayor, but we weren't necessarily told how to do that. So we had to spend some time coming up with that, what are we going to do? And in that time, we did have some incidents and things that happened in our community that we did need to respond to, one of which was violence that happened in one of our local parks. And so we spent a lot of time working with the mayor, the administration, and council members to provide some alternative solutions to violence in our community that was not centered, that was centered around anti-racism and having an anti-racist response to the violence. And I personally have been doing a lot of work in the community around the basketball courts in the community and building a safer, more inclusive park, and working with the council and the mayor and the administration to grow investment in the park. So we've been seeing a lot of work around that, which is really about public health and anti-racism. And the city has been very supportive of that work in those efforts. And we actually are asked and requested to do a lot more in the community. We just don't necessarily have the bandwidth for it, and including having, diversity talks or having community conversations or having sort of public open forums like this where we talk about some of these issues. So we've asked to, push back on that only because we just need to make sure that the community is truly ready for it, to have those conversations, and that they can be done in a safe, equitable manner.
Does anybody on council have questions?
Maybe recognize?
Yes, Kathy.
First, thank you for coming here this evening. We really appreciate it. Did you, I know that you took some time to create bylaws, and are those available online? Do you know?
Yeah, everything we do is public record. They should be posted somewhere on the city's website. And we'd also be, happy to forward over those bylaws so you kind of see what our structure looks like. But really, we used the council resolution as kind of the basis of that. And we really were given a lot of leeway to kind of determine our own direction in satisfying the resolution.
Okay. And have you already, or do you intend to establish any type of goals or things that you hope to accomplish?
Yeah. So what we've done is we are embarking on a racial equity plan for the city of Lakewood. This is basically a community roadmap. Should the city of Lakewood want to employ any one or all of our recommendations for incorporating DEIB or anti-racism into any policy, they'll have this, they will have sort of a guidebook on how to do that equitably and respectfully based on, somebody's race, color, ethnicity, and, even gender and sexual orientation. So we really want to make sure that anything we do recommend is inclusive, and, that, inclusivity also extends not just from the community, but for the people who work in the city of Lakewood too. So we want to make sure that folks are, included, in as sensitive of a way as possible.
Okay. And I understand what the makeup is, how the appointments work. Is there diversity within the committee as far as the residents who were appointed?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you're looking for specific numbers or makeup,
just
but
generally.
we are a very diverse group. I believe we have a decent representation of community members, but not just in race and ethnicity and beliefs, but in socioeconomics and family status as well, but just skill set. We have a wide range of just content experts and professionals in the field. We have a teacher, we have, public servants, individuals that know GIS. We just have a wide variety of backgrounds on that. So our anti-racism task force makeup in and of itself is diverse and representing a true cross-section of Lakewood.
Okay. And you mentioned the very different professions. Is there anyone who was appointed to the committee that has any professional background in the DEI area?
I don't believe any one person has specific credentials or backgrounds in that was appointed, to my knowledge, that I can think of.
But I will add that we did receive some money to hire a consultant because we didn't have that credential among our group, and that consulted Equius Group, which we would highly recommend to anybody. Equius Group, yeah, EQUIUS. It's a weird spelling, but we would definitely recommend them. They're experts in the field, but they will kind of come in and guide the racial equity plan in a way that's that comports with those credentials.
Okay. And other than that advice, which we appreciate, is there any other either advice you would give us or maybe something that when you were starting out you found either worked really well or didn't work that you would be willing to share?
So, here's kind of where I'll plug this legislation. Our legislation is a resolution. Resolutions, as you know, not necessarily binding. And so we have been asked by the community to do so much more that we don't have the power to do. It's not codified that way. So the best thing you can do to get this off the ground is to pass the ordinance. And then, again, it would be a public committee, so just involving the community as much as possible in what goes on, just for transparency, but, also to get those different perspectives that may not necessarily be on that commission, I think would be the most helpful. Just allowing them the bandwidth, but also the support to do the work that's needed.
I would have to agree with Laura on that. I would say go with a little bit more guidance than less guidance. Looking back, it was kind of cool to have almost a blank slate in front of you, but without really knowing sort of, okay, what is really the vision that council or the mayor is really looking for? What are you really trying to accomplish versus what we might want to accomplish? It can be a little bit scary in trying to navigate that. And I think part of our first couple of years, we were sort of trying to navigate that. And we navigated that through having conversations like this with council and the mayor. And we presented, I think we were doing quarterly reports and updates about what we were doing, what we were meeting, what we were talking about, and we were connecting with them, and we connected on various policies that were happening or things that were happening. So we've connected on housing, and we wrote a letter about, housing, and as everybody knows, housing is just increasing, right? Increasing prices. And so, trying to preserve that diversity in our community, at the expense of housing. So definitely maybe a little bit more guidance, and so just trying to strike that balance between giving them a blank slate and not constraining them too much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I be
Yes.
recognized?
Yeah.
Also, thank you for coming this evening and sharing your expertise with us. You mentioned community involvement several times and connecting with the community. Could you give a little bit more background on how you, as a task force, how did you connect with the community of Lakewood?
Sure. So, we've been at multiple community events. We also, intake questions from the community as they come in. Our meetings are subject to Ohio Sunshine Laws. People come in, they ask questions. We answer those during our public comment session. But, we generally, as much as we do connect, we're also we can be reactive. If there are issues in the community, people will seek out our counsel. They will seek out our thoughts and recommendations, just because we've kind of been embedded within the community. They know us. They know that we exist. They're happy that we're there. I will say, though, with regard to communities, I think in Lakewood, I'm not sure of the makeup of this community, we have a huge influx of refugees. Those folks don't necessarily speak English. And so one of the ways that something like this could be beneficial, especially if there's actual financial support and, legal support, behind it, is to make sure that everybody in the community can interact with government equitably, that they have the information they need to make those connections with you all and, members of, your administration, as well as anyone who works at any of your departments. But also, I think it's important to make folks feel welcome, no matter where they come from, who they are. And I think that something like this, and we've been able to make sure that the conversation and the culture in our community is centered equitably, and that, this is something that, we're always thinking about. One, when we're, when council is writing any resolutions or writing any other types of legislation, but when they make those decisions outside of that, I think it's important that this is foundational to the work being done with connecting outwardly, externally, as well as internally.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
All right. First of all, ladies, thank you for coming tonight and speaking. Just one real general question. So you guys have been working on this for about 2 years, 3 years. Has there been any suggestions from your task force that you went to city council with and the mayor, and it was like absolutely like, no, we do not want to touch this at the moment. Like, this is something that just is controversial, or legality issues, anything that's been brought up that's like, no, we just can't do that at this time?
Not to this point. We did put together a letter. Perhaps the closest to that would be our housing letter. And we provided 3 different recommendations of what the city could do to address housing affordability. Because it truly, in our community, it really is a crisis. And we all feel that nothing is being done at the moment for it, and the can just keeps getting kicked down the road. And we're losing families with young kids. We're starting to lose our diversity because people can't afford to live in Lakewood anymore, and they're choosing other avenues, and we don't want to lose that. So we spent a lot of time and effort putting together a letter that hasn't really gone anywhere, but understanding sort of that you're not going to be able to address the housing affordability in a couple of meetings. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of effort to do that. So maybe that was the closest, but really there hasn't been anything that we've recommended that's been controversial. You can go back and maybe I'll send you an email with some links to some of our meetings that have happened. So maybe there's been some passionate conversations that have occurred between members of the task force and council. That's probably the closest that's happened. But really, honestly, it's been a good experience. I do believe that from when we started to where we're at now, I've seen shifts in just language that council members and our mayor uses. I've seen shifts in sort of their thinking, being more inclusive, starting to think outside the box. And even when they're putting forth, a resolution, making sure that, hey, can you read this resolution that we're going to put forth? Do you have any comments? Can you speak on this? Is this something that you can support? We know that it's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to all of a sudden have an amazing altogether DEI and B community. It's going to take work, but I'm seeing the needle moving a little bit. Not a whole lot. I like to see big changes, but it takes time. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Andy.
As everybody else said, thank you for showing up tonight.
You're welcome.
Kind of piggyback off of Aaron's question, when you talked about affordable housing, did you make any recommendations, kind of what to do, not to do? Just kind of curious. You put an idea out there, but what are you doing behind, like you should go this way, or just trying to follow up a little bit.
Yeah, no. So there were three. One of them was actually the city was already sort of in the midst of pursuing, which was the accessory dwelling units option for that. And so the letter was really just laying out reminders about, housing and how it affects certain populations more than others. And here's sort of, if you want it to be equitable, here's how you can go about and look at it. One of the other I wish I could remember right now.
I think it was land banking.
Land banking was something that we put out there as something that the city could do. So again, maybe it's, the city's not, quite ready for that. Again, it's not going to be solved overnight, but it was something that we were saying, hey, we want to make sure that whatever is proposed, that it is anti-racist, that it doesn't affect certain populations and certain groups more so than others. We don't want, housing affordable at the expense of, certain populations over others.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Meg, may I be recognized?
Yes, Stephen.
Thank you guys again. I know everybody said that already, but thank you. I just wanted to see if you can elaborate a little bit more. I know we talked before the meeting, but on the basketball court situation, what you guys did there. I think it's a tangible example that you can share what you guys did.
Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
mind?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'd like to say something. Yeah, I'll give it to you. So that also is something I thought of when we were talking more about things we've recommended. I think whenever, Lakewood's bigger than Brooklyn, but we still kind of, we're densely populated. We kind of look at ourselves as a smaller community. And, when anything happens in a smaller community, like violence at a local park, people are going to be a little bit more concerned about safety, for kids and, anyone else that would be using the park. One of the first, I think the first reaction was to kind of take the basketball hoops down because that's where the violence happened. And that's honestly, I grew up in inner city Cleveland. That's kind of, we never had basketball hoops. They took them down just because we could never advocate for those in our public spaces. So that's the general, what cities generally do to make sure, well, if there's violence here, take away kind of why people are coming to the park and take away that, potential. So, for us in Lakewood, we're very interested in making sure that we are not disinvesting from our community spaces. As I've seen in Cleveland, when the city starts to disinvest, eventually these places become abandoned, not taken care of, and that actually opens it up to more crime in the long run. So what we did in Lakewood is we said, you know what, we don't really agree with this. This is why, this is the anti-racist component. A lot of the people using Madison Park are people of color, just because of where it's situated in Lakewood, closer to 117th. We did a lot of things. We advocated for park improvements, which we got, to make sure that the park was better lit, that it's actually walkable. We actually had sidewalks added so that there would be people around when people were playing basketball, so it wasn't like segregated off in the corner, which makes things a little bit more unsafe because you don't necessarily have anyone kind of watching that or walking around. There was also, as Angelina said, a park ambassador program. This is sort of like a way to inactively kind of, surveil what's going on in the park, respond to any issues, and connect with folks. And so we, thought that response was more in line with what the community wanted, but also, helped to establish more public programming at that park. We got more movies at that park, more people using it as a gathering space, investing in, monetarily, but also investing in people, in making a space where everybody can be that's safe. And I think it's worked out very well. If you wanted to add, go ahead.
definitely. So, out of all of that work, the biggest thing, I think the biggest lesson and the biggest takeaway in that year, I think that was 21 is when So 21, the community, we basically said, hey, we crowdsourced. So the organization was Madison Court Community Coalition, and we crowdsourced, what do you want to see in this park? What would make you come to the park more? And so we crowdsourced, all these ideas, and the city found money and invested in the park, money that had not been budgeted. Finance director, you know how that goes, right? So the city found money and invested and put up bleachers, created a pathway that connected the front of the park to the back of the park, put in grills, put in a water fountain that includes one for the dogs, and then this year they actually put up new backboards. And so the city has, the city has aligned in the sense of being and accepting and seeing that, you don't need a heavy-handed response to violence all the time. That what you need sometimes is to build community. And so through those efforts, increasing the guardians in the park, changing the environmental design, was making the park safer. And then the mayor implemented a park ambassadors program and met with the task force members, met with Laura and I on behalf of the task force, and we talked about that program and gave her feedback, and wrote a letter supporting that program. And it was implemented last year. It had some hiccups, but this year it was fully operational and has been a success. People that aren't in the know, they have things to say, but if you're in the parks, if you've met and talked with the ambassadors, if you see them interacting with the young people, they know who the young people are, they know their stories. All of that has led to a decrease in vandalism in that park. So these are all things that have happened as a result of connected community, the work of the Anti-Racism Task Force, and just the work of being a more diverse and equitable and inclusive community and doing that work together.
Any other questions from council? Thank you, ladies, so much for coming out today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we will have the public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say pertaining to an item on the agenda, please step forward, state your name and address, and you will be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Good evening. My name is Rick Singer. I live at 6211 Delora Avenue. And the first thing I'd like to do is wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Hanukkah, and all the above, and have a very safe 2024. As some of you may know, I retired from the school board after serving 12 years for Brooklyn Schools. And I want to comment, I'm here tonight to comment on your proposed commission of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I oppose any kind of commission like this. And the reason for that is I've done some studying. State of Texas, state of Florida has banned all SEI groups because as much as you're all well-intentioned for wanting to do the right thing and making sure people are respectful, what reminds me of people respecting each other is I go to the playground over at the school and I see the kids playing together of all religions, races, genders, sexes. They play nice. And I think we have a lot to learn from those kids. So there's no commission for those kids. They don't need a commission. What they do know is they're taught to respect others for who they are, not for what protected class they are or subclass. Now, what I've seen with DEI, an observation as a board member of the Ohio Constitutional School Board Coalition, is that these commissions are weaponized, and they're weaponized against the people we want to protect. It's why you see at universities a strong anti-Semite coalition where Jewish students have to lock themselves up because of the fact that you have this DEI out there who claims that we have the authority basically because we feel that what you're doing is wrong or just because you're Jewish. And quite frankly, if I'm on the third floor of a burning hotel, I don't really care if the firefighter is gay. I don't care if the firefighter has purple hair or transgender. What I do care is that they are qualified to do the work. They're qualified to do the job. Okay, if they happen to be gay, if they happen to be transgender, wonderful. That's all the better. I look at city council here, you're all white. So am I. But you know what? I've been here for over 40 years, and I don't ever remember Brooklyn being a target for being anti-racist or anti-Semite. Yeah, you have the individual cases once in a while, but as a policy for this administration, I have not witnessed anybody who discriminated against people, and especially when you start setting commissions like that, you're developing a subclass. So now you take the protected classes under the federal government and you drill down, and now you make it political. Now, because the people don't agree with you, you start setting policy. And then who sets policy in this commission? What's the enforcement of this commission? How is it going to affect the hiring of people, qualified people in the city of Brooklyn? So you have to look at them, whether they're black, they're white, they're what their gender is. That's a determining factors for who you hire. When we hire teachers who are committed to education. We didn't look at the color of their skin or whether they were gay or straight or whatever. You're digging a hole, and we're seeing this in the universities around the country. It's why one of the university presidents, University of Penn, was fired. It's all about this DEI. Diversity, there's no diversity. There's no diversity of thought with these organizations. Equity, it's equal outcome. It's not equal opportunity that a lot of us, we fought for anti-Semitism. We fought any attempts to segregate people based on their race or the color or creed or lifestyle. But what happens is that these commissions are given the authority basically to affect department heads, chiefs on hiring policies. That's where I see this going. It's a very dangerous precedent because who has the power? Who has the power in the commission? Who's on the commission? What authority do they have? And what influences will they have on hiring? I would hope and pray that all of you are hiring
Mr.
people.
Singer, it has been 5 minutes. Okay. You can wrap up.
Let me finish up real quick. I would just hope that you'd reconsider and look at your own hiring policy guidelines in the city and see, do we really need a commission like this? I feel that we don't. I think it's an overreach. Thank you.
Cindy Whitey, 4164 Springcrest Drive. Good evening. I'm speaking tonight as well regarding item 4D, ordinance 2023-40, enacting Chapter 157, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Commission. As a Brooklyn resident for 40 years, I feel that the idea of this ordinance is very important in order for our city to grow as well as continue to make all people feel welcome. While I somewhat agree with the previous statements from Mayor Van Kirk regarding our hiring process and that our city has and continues to follow state and federal equal opportunity guidelines for the city's hiring process, we can and should do a better job as a community as far as welcoming new residents and appreciating our existing residents regardless of race, color, creed, etc. Over the last 40 years, our city has seen many changes, some for the better, some perhaps not as better, but that depends on who we ask. Yet, albeit not the same Brooklyn that I first moved to 40 years ago, but definitely not exclusive to our city alone. There have been many times in most recent past where a lifelong Brooklyn resident of 40 years was threatened, harassed, and belittled, and made to feel unwelcome because he displayed a pride flag representing the LGBTQ community in his front yard. Imagine growing up in Brooklyn your entire life, graduating from Brooklyn High School, continuing to plant roots by becoming a homeowner and adding value to our community, only to be made to feel that after 40 years, now all of a sudden, you don't belong. Other incidents have also recently occurred as well, which have shed a less than favorable light on our city and the lack of understanding and acceptance towards all human beings, religious beliefs, etc., sending an even bigger message to others who may be considering to move to Brooklyn or even shop, visit, etc. While we cannot control what happens outside of our city as far as ignorance and the display of hateful propaganda, much like another resident mentioned a week ago that they saw at the Speedway gas station on Ridge and Brook Park Road, which is actually located in Parma, we can and should promote that Brooklyn is a city of inclusion and has a zero tolerance for such type of hateful actions or behavior. And I believe that forming a commission of this nature would be beneficial in educating and engaging in discussions and communications in order to promote a better understanding and respect for all people and form an even more welcoming community to all. The city of Brooklyn has become a very diverse community in many regards. We have residents of many different cultures, religious beliefs, and race, as well as growing number of residents in the LGBTQIA+ society. Additionally, 1 year or so ago, the city spent approximately $40,000 in order to create a new logo, a fresh look, or branding identity for our city. This includes the tagline of Brooklyn, moving forward together. This undertaking has been somewhat of a pleasant facelift for the city and can be seen in the signage at highway exit ramps and post-type signage on main streets throughout the city, our city stationery, and even the occasional thank you note that one might receive from our mayor. However, that being said, we as a community, as well as our administration, cannot simply talk the talk in what we put on display for the exterior, but we must also walk the walk from within if in fact we truly intend on moving forward together as a community. Therefore, not only do I, as a longtime Brooklyn resident, support this ordinance, but encourage all members of council to vote yes in support as well. Thank you.
Good evening. Matthew Mosley, 4582 Forest Edge. First of all, I want to thank Stephen for answering my questions that I had about the DEI over the weekend. I would like to thank the speakers that are not here anymore. I'd like to show my support for the DEI, and I'd like to give a little bit of my insight and opinion on that. So every day of my life, I have lived through the eyes of a white male. Most of you guys know that my wife is Puerto Rican. She's not mixed, she's 100% Puerto Rican, so therefore I have biracial kids. Their life is going to be viewed differently than I have ever viewed life. I feel as though I'm empathetic to people that are different than me, that look different than me, that might not speak the same language that I do. But I will never fully understand how they view the world or Brooklyn. As much as I think that I understand my wife, I'm not Spanish and I'm not a woman. So I will never know. I talked to my in-laws, which are also Spanish, about this, and I feel as though that Brooklyn is not discriminatory at all. I feel, as a whole, of course, there are separate one-off instances that happen, but in talking to 9,000 people, 10,000 people over the summer, there are people that do not look like me, do not look like you guys, that feel that they are not represented. And with this being an advisory commission that is not making wholesale demands or changes, doesn't have the power to do that, just recommendations, just as the Charter Review Commission, for example, this can go a long way in showing people that are different than us that we are listening to them by them speaking for themselves. I also think that something that's being overlooked is that the school board superintendent can appoint two people, one being a student and one being a resident. So it can further the relationship between the city and the schools, which is never a bad thing. It also gets the superintendent out into the public a little bit more, so some people don't know who the superintendent is. And on a side note, I do wish that if this is tabled, which I know was talked about at the last meeting, that when there is a vote on it, that everybody on council gets to vote, and anybody that has a concern that has not been answered, have that answered before you guys vote. That's all I got.
Anybody else for public session? Okay. On our agenda tonight, we have ordinance 2023-36. This is on third reading and up for adoption tonight. Amended annual appropriations ordinance. And before we go further, can I turn it over to Director Raguse to read into the record a few of these the changes that are within this ordinance?
Absolutely. As you all know, this is my favorite ordinance of the year that I prepared. So I will go over the changes as compared to the first reading on November 27th, and the changes are in yellow in the document that's attached to the legislation. So for the general fund, for the police department, increase of $130,000 in wages and benefits for overtime and hiring of additional correction officers. This is amended from an initial increase of $180,000, so it went down by $50,000. Fire department, a decrease of $140,000 in wages and benefits due to the vacancies of the 3 firefighter positions for a portion of the year, as well as the captain's positions that were budgeted for the full year. In the service garage, a decrease of $160,000 in wages and benefits due to the vacant mechanic position, and also a decrease in overtime costs. This is amended from the initial decrease of $120,000, so the decrease went up by $40,000. In data systems, an increase of $25,000 in other expenditures. This is amended from the initial increase of $40,000 as a result of additional cybersecurity management and cybersecurity framework that we did with our IT consultant, Simve. In general government, increase of $30,000 for property and liability insurance. This is amended from an initial increase of $9,000. So overall general fund increase of $5.865 million. As I mentioned at the first reading on November 27th, the reason for this increase is really due to the additional transfers and advances due to the current fiscal year surplus that we're experiencing in the general fund. In the other funds, the economic development, a decrease of $600,000 in other expenditures as a result of less advances to our TIF funds. Street construction, increase of $50,000 for additional road repair and concrete supplies. This is amended from initial increase of $40,000, so the increase went up by $10,000. The State Highway Fund, $460,000. This is amended from initial increase of $360,000 due to Brook Park Road. At the first reading, I did not include the additional $100,000 that City Council previously approved as part of the capital budget. In the local fiscal recovery fund, a decrease of $100,000 in wages and benefits. We received a grant for the police department for personnel expenses. We are anticipating to receive reimbursement for these expenses in 2024 due to the costs being incurred in 2024 instead of current year. And also an increase of $600,000 in other expenditures. You may recall we received a grant from the county of $750,000 ARPA funding that was passed through the county. We used these funds for the city center expenses, so this is really a reclassification of funds from the Civic Center Fund to the local fiscal recovery fund. Street lighting, additional $3,000 as just in case if we need a buffer for this, for the street lighting expenditures for the year. Cops grant, additional $10,000 for wages and benefits for a cops officer. Fire pension fund, decrease of $60,000 due to the vacancies of 3 firefighter positions and captain's positions that I talked about with the fire department. Civic Center Fund, decrease of $105,000 due to the shifting of expenses from this fund to a local fiscal recovery fund for the grant that we received from the county. The TIF fund for the Fairfield Inn Carnation Hospitality, increase of $140,000 in other expenditures due to an increase of advances paid back to the Economic Development Fund. Bond retirement fund, increase of $115,000 as we paid down or fully paid down our bond anticipation notes back in May. And lastly, decrease of $10,000 in the POPIS fund due to unused overtime. So overall increase, overall appropriation increase of almost $7.6 million. Majority of that, again, as a result of the one-time transfers due to current fiscal year surplus in the general fund, for a total appropriations of $43.6 million. As I'd like to mention, these are conservative, not to exceed amounts. So within there are buffers just in case, so we don't go over. Are there any questions from City Council?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
Just making sure we have enough of a buffer for the next 2 weeks and everywhere.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
I'm very confident in that.
Thank you.
Thank you for reading those for us.
I always love doing that. Thank you for having me do that.
I greatly appreciate it.
I'm sure.
With that, I move to approve.
Second.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I don't think the title was read into the record yet. I think it was just the first part of it.
Or,
Oh, that's what I have here. Wait.
one moment, please. This is ordinance 2023-36, amended annual appropriations ordinance, amending ordinance 2022-46, entitled An Ordinance to Make Appropriations for Current and Other Expenditures of the City of Brooklyn, State of Ohio, for the period January 1, 2023 to December 31st, 2023.
Move to adopt?
Second.
To adopt, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky. I'm sorry. Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-37 is on third reading and up for adoption tonight. Annual appropriations ordinance to make appropriations for current and other expenditures of the City of Brooklyn, State of Ohio, for the period January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024.
Move to adopt?
Second.
To adopt, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-38 is on third reading and up for adoption tonight, amending Exhibit A of Ordinance 2023-13, providing for the compensation for the part-time, full-time, and administrative employees, non-bargaining agreement of the City of Brooklyn, Ohio. And this ordinance, as we've talked about at other meetings, updates the salary schedules of the non-bargaining employees and adds a stipend amount for the law director when negotiations are completed in-house.
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-40 is on third reading and up for adoption tonight, enacting Chapter 157, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Commission to the codified ordinances of the City of Brooklyn.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I'd just like to read a letter that I received from a resident that couldn't be here tonight. This is from Reverend Dan Bryant at 7436 Southfield Avenue. He says, and he sent this to all members of council, but just so it's in the record, it says, I write this letter in support of legislation calling for the formation of a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, and here is why. I love the emerging diversity of the city and the hopeful intentionality of developing a more cultural, competent city and officials within the city. My mother-in-law has lived on Southfield Avenue for over 45 years. My wife and I moved into our home in June 2021 to be primary caregivers after we retire. I retired as a United Methodist pastor, and my wife was an administrative assistant. We have 2 adopted adult children, our son from El Salvador and our daughter from South Korea. In our over 46 years of marriage, we have lived in richly diverse, multicultural communities. We love living on Southfield with the diverse residents who take pride in their homes and community. A single mom lives next door, and she is doing her best to both grow as a parent and help her daughter navigate the challenges of today's world. The Brooklyn schools offer a great opportunity for her to learn and grow. On the other side of our home is an older couple who have lived here for over 40 years. They are more frail, but we watch out for them as our neighbors. A few houses down, our neighbor lost his wife a few years ago, and his daughter, who lives on the street, continues to care for him with great compassion. We have so much to be thankful for. But all is not rosy and cheery. During Gay Pride Month, I put a rainbow flag on my front porch railing and was sitting quietly one afternoon when a car drove by the house. A few houses after passing, the car backed up, and the older white gentleman, with his wife in the passenger seat, hollered at me, "Where's your American flag?" I remained silent, and he persisted that you should have an American flag and not that flag showing. The pride flag was simply draped over my porch railing, but he kept persisting. I finally responded and said, "Today I am sharing this flag." He shared a few more expletives, and then I simply said, "Okay, you've said what you wanted to say, now you can move on." He put the car in gear and drove away. Upon reflection of his actions, I should have taken down his license plate because there now seems to be so much more animosity towards those who are different. My heart breaks at this new reality of growing racism, bias, and unbridled anger that just seems irrational. I truly love living in Brooklyn and appreciate the great work the city does in caring for their community, but I believe more can be done. As I marvel at the amazing work being done in our community and the new construction being done and recently completed, I believe deliberately striving to become more culturally attuned to the richness of our diversity will only make Brooklyn more attractive to others. In our growing diversity as a nation and the heightened anxiety that comes with change and diversity, I ponder some questions. He asks, how does the city address the rising animosity in our communities and help ensure that all people feel safe? As city officials, do we engage in cultural competency training to help us better understand the many diverse cultures in our community? And are we engaged in listening to hear from our diverse community regarding both strengths and concerns they might have regarding our city? And what might we do to help our residents grow in their own understanding of the beauty of diversity, inclusion, and equity? The more we as a city engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion awareness and work in our lives, the more attractive Brooklyn becomes. We have such potential to grow even more as a community on the edge of Cleveland that people will want to live in. But as they move in to live, we should be very deliberate in making sure all feel welcome, heard, and included in our city life. Given my personal experiences, my hopes and dreams for our beloved Brooklyn city, I urge you to support legislation calling for the formation of a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. Reverend Dan Bryant. And then I still have a couple other things. I just wanted to thank Mr. Singer, Mrs. Wody, and Mr. Mosley for speaking tonight. I could answer the question that Mr. Singer poised about the authority and the power. Laid out in this legislation, it's just an advisory commission. They're meant to, make suggestions, and then, the education piece is the real focal point here. So I know a lot has been talked about with quota systems and hiring and firing. That's not this ordinance. It's not meant to be that. It's something that we want to put forth, like Mr. Mosley said, and give the voice to the people that would like to speak. And give us the suggestions that we might not know. Like you said, everybody up here is white. It's something that maybe somebody doesn't feel like they could speak to us. Usually people look for somebody in city council to be their representative, and right now we're not offering that. So this is something that we can do to offer that to those people.
Any other questions regarding this ordinance?
I do have one more question. Do you have the information from Moreland Hills?
So the woman from Moreland Hills did reach out with an email, and if we do not vote on this legislation tonight, I will forward it to you, and she will be at the next meeting. She had to go to Columbus this weekend, and her granddaughter's sick, so she had to take care of her granddaughter, and obviously family always comes first. But I do have a little bit to read from her email to me that I'll be sharing with everyone on council as well, and incoming council. So this is from Lori Eiler. She is the commission chair for the Moreland Hills Diversity and Inclusion Commission. She says, "We are concluding our first calendar year as a commission. It is an honor to be asked to contribute to the conversation. You are in the final stages of consideration of a DEIB commission ordinance. I apologize for not being able to attend the December 18th meeting, but would be happy to attend in January if you would find that helpful. Our commission is made up of 10 residents of various identities and experiences. However, we are all devoted to a mission of ensuring our community is inclusive, equitable, and celebrates diversity. We have used the details of our duties as outlined in our ordinance to define and guide our work. I commend you for the due diligence you have demonstrated in creating a detailed ordinance to guide the work of your commission. In Moreland Hills, per our ordinance, our work generally boils down to 4 types of action: engaging, educating, evaluating, and advising. However, like your proposed commission, we do not have any independent power. As defined by the ordinance, any type of action we take must first be approved by your village council. While this might slow down the process of getting things done quickly, it has served to ensure that all of our efforts are indeed unified efforts on behalf of our community, because everything we do is a unified action of our council, our mayor, and our commission. This has served us well. Our mayor, village councilpersons, and police chief have all been involved in our initial events. Their presence and prior endorsement have served our community building well. So that's just a little bit about what she talks about with Moreland Hills. I did have a conversation with her yesterday to get a little more feel for where they're at. And theirs is a little more similar because it is a diversity and inclusion commission, similar to what we're, the commission that we're talking about versus the anti-racism task force that Lakewood, the 2 ladies tonight, talked about. So this has a little bit of more of a similar feel. And they are just finishing up their first full year of work. And so I'm hoping that you guys do invite her out in January to listen to her a little bit more about the work they've done and how another community does it. I know multiple people up here had talked about hearing from other communities. So I'm hoping she can join you guys.
May I be recognized?
You may.
I apologize for missing last meeting, and I understand that discussion about postponing voting tonight occurred. I just would like to say that I support voting, obviously, support this ordinance and voting for it tonight. Listening to the speakers tonight, listening to our questions, everything that we have or are looking at wouldn't change the ordinance in front of us. We're more already moving past this ordinance to what the commission's work would look like and what they could focus on. And I really think that would be the 11 people who are put in place, their focus on figuring it out. What we pass tonight or possibly defer until January isn't going to change. That ordinance isn't going to change. The only thing that it really would change was our time frame of having people appointed and in place to start 2024 with the commission. We would just be postponing that. I mean, nothing that anybody has suggested is changing this ordinance. So I personally don't see a reason to postpone voting tonight.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
Okay, so researching this ordinance, I mean, if we're going to vote on it tonight, I'd much rather not. I'd love to table it for multiple reasons. Under 157.02, the composition, it is the residents of and/or persons who work in the city. Questions such as, does that mean someone that works, that's 18 years old and works part-time at Sheetz can be appointed to possibly discuss city policy? I absolutely disagree with the notion of implementing a commission that has individuals that do not live within the city, making decisions that affect our city policies. Also, there should be no council member elected to this commission, and I'll give you reasons why. One, that individual can sway the discussion of matters in their favor. That should be taken out. Two, that individual would appoint a person that's two similar mindsets, two similar votes already for or against something. So that right there is an incorrect mindset when it comes to writing legislation that promotes diversity. They can also appoint someone, for example, myself, if I don't, by the end of January, meet the deadline of appointing someone, that council member can appoint someone, and in case that meeting takes place in February, that's 3 votes in favor or against something. Not really divisive, not much diversity there, and so forth. So if I don't appoint someone, Kevin doesn't, Ms. Pucci doesn't, that could be seen as a major power grab by some of the residents. 157.05, duties. Educating, sharing information with city employees, officials. Has anyone reached out to the unions to ask them questions on how they feel about possible discussions of training practices being included into their workforce? Has anyone reached out to the fire chief, police chief, Mr. Verba on any of this? To see how anything that could possibly be implemented by us would have a direct effect on them. Until those answers until those questions are answered, I cannot and will not support this. Thank you.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I do support a DEI initiative and a commission, but I do support deferring it until January. First of all, I think it's best that everyone up here have the opportunity to have a fuller discussion and all of their questions answered. We really have not dedicated a lot of time to actually discussing what's in this ordinance. And we've only heard from one city, and there very well may be, based on some questions or concerns that the council has, the mayor, or some information we may glean from another community who has such a committee or commission, we may be amending this. So we really have not had, an opportunity to really have a discussion on this. So I do support deferring it until January. I don't support deferring it, indefinitely. I would like to see us take this up right in the beginning of January, but that's my opinion.
I can support that.
I move to defer to the first meeting in January.
Second.
To defer to the first meeting in January, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
No.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Okay.
Next on our agenda is ordinance 2023-42. This is on second reading, amending section 717.03, maximum number of sales of the codified ordinances of the city of Brooklyn. And under new business tonight, we have ordinance 2023-43. This is on first reading, but administration is looking for us to adopt through suspension of the rules, authorizing the updated capital improvement plan for 2023. And this is an increase of $145,000 in the streets fund for the senior center sanitary sewer extension project. And this money is being paid out via the demolition grant fund. Director Raguse, is that from the one from the county that comes through ARPA?
The demo fund is through the county, yes, but it's not ARPA-related money. It's we received about $600,000 that we've used for the demolition, and now we're using for this purpose.
Thank you.
Introduced by all to suspend the rules.
Second?
To suspend the rules, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
To adopt, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
That's everything on our agenda tonight. Does anyone on council or directors have anything else to add to the meeting?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I just want to wish my colleagues, the mayor, all of our chiefs, directors, department heads, foremen, and all of our employees and their families of Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. I truly appreciate what each and every one of our employees do for the residents of our city.
And I just, before we adjourn, would like to say thank you so much to the city of Brooklyn, the residents. Thank you to all of my colleagues up here and the directors, and Mary Jo, thanks for putting up with me, especially over the last year, and helping me, especially with the
Cheat sheet?
yes, cheat sheets, and learning the ropes as council president, director, oh my gosh, Butler, I'm sorry. Thank you for all of your help. But seriously, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be able to serve the city in this way, and I really appreciate it. So wish everyone a very happy new year, and hope to see you at some events next year. With that, I'd move to adjourn.
Second.
No.
Excuse me. Pardon me for
Yes.
interrupting. May I interrupt your motion?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, the reason she forgot my name is because nobody calls me Director Butler. It's just Kevin around here, which is perfectly fine, and it's been a privilege to serve you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
We've had a resident inquiring about the second opportunity for the public to speak, and I understand that this was posted as a special meeting. However, in my mind, I view this as a rescheduling of our regular meeting that should be taking place next Monday, which of course we wouldn't do because it's Christmas. If my colleagues are open to it, I would make a motion to suspend the rules, I think it's Rule 14, and amend the agenda to allow a second public session for items not relating to our agenda.
Second.
Second.
To allow for the second public session. Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
With that, at this time, we will have the second public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say pertaining to the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, and you will be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Good evening, everyone. Victor Ardito, 7439 Outlook Avenue. A couple things, I'll probably bring them up in 2024. I was against it when it was passed with the sign, any sign being 8 feet tall. That was the limit. You have this new signs on 480 Tiedemann, look very good. I mentioned when you start putting plants there and shrubs, it's going to overgrow it. The new shrubs are at the bottom of it right now. Somebody going to be trimming those regularly? Because I think they'd be better off if the signs were 12 foot, but not going to happen. But our new welcome signs to Brooklyn look very nice. Any reason they're 13 feet tall? I was in the understanding 8 foot was the limit. I think they look nice, but they're 13 feet tall. The new decal looks very nice. I saw it, I haven't been looking close. I saw a plow truck go by and I'm trying to, what's that truck? Is that a city truck? And the decal on the door was so small, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 inches big. Not in the center like it used to be. Is there any signs coming up where you can see that that is a City of Brooklyn truck going down the street? Signs on buildings that go out of business. Can we pass something or in the place? One example is Bed Bath & Beyond. They're gone. The sign was up for months. The sign's gone. Now you have the shadow of Bed Bath & Beyond. And, you know, any business, you know, take these signs down. And back to lights, yes. You had mentioned parks. So whatever you do with the new parks, are they going to have lights where you can actually see? Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone, and Merry Christmas.
Here I am again. Rick Singer, 6211 Delora. I would ask City Council and our safety officers, police chief, to consider putting up stop signs that are illuminated and solar powered on some of our Brooklyn streets. The reason why I mentioned this tonight, and I was going to bring it up to the next meeting, is because Santa Claus came down our street the other night. And prior to Santa Claus coming down Delora Avenue, there were 3 cars that sped through the stop sign at Pelham and Delora. And this is an occurrence that happens more often than not at night. Now, the city took down one of the trees that was blocking the view of the stop sign for drivers. And whether we like it or not, Delora is a cut-through street. And what we're finding is that a lot of these cars are speeding through the stop sign. Well, the other night when Santa came to town, just prior to that, a lot of us neighbors came outside, and I personally witnessed 3 cars that 2 of them slowed down, but they wouldn't slow down enough to hit a child. The third one blew right through the stop sign. And one of my neighbors is sitting back here. You could probably attest to the same, that we see more often than not that we see children in peril. You know, our kids still play in the street, they cross the street. It'd be nice to have the illuminated stop signs so that people, you know, the excuse can't be, I didn't see the stop sign. If they're solar powered, I don't know how much it costs, but I think it's something we should consider. I know other communities have them, and we should as well. Thank you.
Hi, Jillian Janis. I also live on Delora. I am his neighbor. I witnessed that as well the other night, and I fully agree and support everything he had to say in regards to the speeding down Delora is a problem. I believe several of you have been on Delora yourself and have seen it, witnessed it. The stop signs, they are blowing through it. There was a car turning off of Pelham as Santa and the officer were sitting there waiting to cross that intersection. They were trying to turn into Santa. and would not take no for an answer. They did finally have to be forced to turn around, but it is a very big problem. Every night I hear cars blowing through that stop sign, speeding. I hear tires screeching. Yes, it's at night, so yes, children should be inside, but there are people that walk their dogs late at night. There are people that are out and about, and yes, it is a very growing problem. Thank you.
There is nobody else. I will move to adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Stephen Coyle.
Yes.
Oh, you too. Thank you.
Why won't that close?
Sue, you have a wonderful Christmas, holiday season, and all that.